What's up? I'm back. This segment is gonna be short and sweet. I'm talking about spirituality and drugs. I get this question a lot. I'm gonna talk about from the health angle. No spirituality, no morals. Basically, anyone talk about drugs, I'm going to talk about natural drugs, ayahuasca, marijuana, DMT related drugs. No crack and meth and heroin. Crack, meth, and heroin, artificial drugs like that will destroy your life, let alone your spiritual life. They alter your DNA. Unfortunately, they alter your DNA so much that a lot of people who abuse those drugs can't even do spirituality on the highest level. Now, that doesn't mean that they shouldn't do spirituality. I'm talking about when you want to deal with spirituality on the higher levels. Those drugs are a weapon. And sometimes people think of it as just an economic weapon. But there's other forces that understand. It's a weapon on a whole different other level because the person, for that incarnation at least, totally disqualifies himself. Those drugs are extremely dangerous and not to be messed with. Now, when I'm talking about more natural drugs, understand what does drugs do? It creates changes in your body, in your brain chemistry and blood chemistry. Very important. Now, in spiritual world, you have four major elements, and one element that's not as visible, the fifth element, which is the element of spirit, which that element actually came before the others. Now, because of the fifth element or the element of spirit, what naturally happens is that element is kind of intangible, but the one place it can be stored is in your blood. Now, the bloodstream in the normal human doesn't really store a surplus of it at all. Still has a little bit of it, but doesn't store a surplus of it. The only way you could actually store that in your blood is to create changes in the blood chemistry. So this is how you have certain spiritual systems like yoga and alchemy. Yoga and alchemy aim to create changes in the body's blood and brain chemistry. Alchemy so much so that when the body and brain chemistry change so much, they can affect physical matter. It's a different level than yoga, but yoga is the basic. Yoga covers what I'm basically want to cover today. When you do yoga for a long period of time, you become a different person. You become a healthier person. Your personality changes. Your awareness changes. So much so that your afterlife changes because of that. Remember, what's energy? A lot of times, energy starts off really it's light codes. It's information. And when you can pick up more light codes, more information, you're going to have a different afterlife than someone else who can't. That's the bottom line. So when a person does yoga for 10, 15 years, they change for the better most of the time. Drugs comes in because drugs creates that change too. I'm talking about natural drugs now, like marijuana and DMT related drugs. The problem is it forces the body to change. It forces the body to have a reaction. When it forces your body to have a reaction, your body has switches. It's like an immune system that it gets turned offline. And what happens is your body now can't filter out energy or information that's coming to it. And then because it can't filter it out, it affects the person differently. Any occultist of a certain degree can actually put up shields and are able to sort of block out other influences that come to the person if they don't want to. When you take drugs or you force your body to have a reaction, you can't do that. You can no longer do that. Now, this ties in to modifications of blood because yoga and alchemy more, but yoga does it too. When changes in the bloodstream happen, the blood now can actually hold Akasha in much greater amounts. So when a Christian says the blood of Christ, I'm not talking about Christ being God, and I'm talking about what he represented symbolically. They were saying the blood of an initiate is a lot different than the blood of a regular human. The regular human can actually attain the blood of an initiate, but they have to do proactive spiritual work. When you worship something externally, especially if you can't really understand what it means to you internally, because you can worship the sun, but the sun is solar energy. The sun is solar energy, but solar energy is bigger than the sun. So when someone worships the sun, even that's still not as bad because you can still relate that to a process or to energy within yourself. If you worship a person, you can't really. Honestly, that has nothing to do with yourself. There's nothing internally that person represents. Especially because the person, at the end of the day, anyone can achieve that. So if the person doesn't tell you that, whether it's Christ or a cult leader, whatever the case may be, then then in a sense it's counterproductive. So I think sometimes when people ask this question, it goes into deeper truth that I don't want to cover in this channel. But the fact that most spiritual systems do not create changes in the blood chemistry. If it doesn't create change in your blood chemistry, it's not a real spiritual system, and it's no different than a storybook, to be honest. Now, sometimes that's not on the systems themselves. That may be on the people who presently control the systems. Because every system probably had an authentic purpose for being started. But, man changes things as they go on. So, when people ask them about drugs, understand. Depends. There's no real right or wrong answer because it depends what you want to do. But I would say any drug, or even if it's a natural drug, if you get dependent on it, it becomes counterproductive. At the end of the day, you want to change your chemistry because it's like Nikola Tesla said, thought, energy, matter. The reason why everyone says thought create the universe, but their lives don't change, is because they don't understand. It's like a trickle-down effect. Energy copies mental energy. So energy copies thought. And then matter copies energy. So when you create changes in your blood and your brain chemistry, it goes thought, it goes energy, and then your physical body gets affected. When you take a substance, you go on matter, energy, thought. People say, well, what's the difference? It's like an inverted pentagram. People think the pentagram is bad because they see the satanic pentagram or the inverted pentagram. And in the satanic pentagram, they're saying matter over spirit. It's supposed to be spirit over matter. People take this and say, oh, matter is illusion, doesn't matter. I said, no. Of course the physical world matters. The difference will be is because the element Akasha, the fifth element, created the other four. The other four elements, when they're in harmony, are taking orders from Akasha. So it's the spirit ruling the physical. But when you try and reverse it and go physical ruling the spiritual, it doesn't work out for you like that, especially in the afterlife. So what happens naturally is, I think that's the reason why everyone gets confused. When you're doing yoga to alchemy, you're going thought, energy, matter. The true trickle-down effect. It works the way it's supposed to. When you're taking a substance in or injecting it, you're going matter, energy, thought. You're locking yourself into a 3D or lower environment which you experience in the afterlife. That's why even if you abuse a regular natural drug, if you take it once or twice just to prove the spiritual world exists, it's cool. Marijuana is a little bit harder because with marijuana, it could be recreational, it could be you could use it for medicine, and then it has the cult following where people just use it because they think it's the tree of life. So in another way, sometimes drugs like ayahuasca and them are actually even better because people kind of know that ayahuasca is a serious drug. Shamans just don't give that to anyone, right? Up until recently, I think it was illegal in America for a while. So it's not something that people, play games with. With marijuana, because it could be recreational, it could be used for medicine, it could be used for many purposes, people could abuse it where if you say, oh, marijuana is not bad for spirituality, the person starts abusing it for 4 or 5 days a week. Then it becomes counterproductive. That's not what it's supposed to be about for the most part. What it's really supposed to be about is when the person understands what the blood is, what the brain is, what changing them means. Changing them means much better health. That's why when somebody practices yoga, they become a healthier person. When somebody even eats the right foods, they become a healthier person. But if you don't understand what you're doing, because even when you eat food, even food for the most part, is still creating subtle change. See, the thing is, at the end of the day, it's not, real spirituality has to happen subtly. Anytime it's too quickly, you're dealing with a lower frequency spirituality, which is not bad per se. But if you want to go to a higher level, then you have to understand the difference. And I think that's what people don't understand. You can't get righteous because everyone has different paths. But I think people can actually understand the differences in the world and understand the differences in the spiritual world and understand the many paths, understand the ramifications of taking certain paths, which I think people don't understand. Because when they look at the spiritual, they look at it as just as spiritual. But they don't understand the spiritual is bigger than the physical. So it has many paths. So when you, depending on the path you want, that's the path that you take. That's, whether it's the drug route, natural drug route, of course, whether it's being clean from that and just doing straight up Kabbalah, yoga, alchemy, whatever the case may be. Depends on the path. Depends if you want to just escape reality. It depends if you want enlightenment. It depends if you want to be a vehicle for the higher forces to work in the physical. which is the highest level, to be honest. That's a whole nother story. It depends on what the person wants. Because I can tell you this, when it comes to spirituality and drugs, you take drugs, you have no filters. You don't even think about trying to go up against a magician because you don't have a spiritual defense. That's like walking around with no immune system. Any magician with half a grain of salt can take advantage of that situation. In the end of the day, I think what people should really take from this video is, what do drugs do? They change your blood and brain chemistry. That's what you want to do. But you want to do it subtly. If it's too harsh, it becomes counterproductive. The body loses its filter. You can't process information. And that's why some psychics will say when a person takes drugs, they have holes in their aura. The aura is like a shield. When they have holes in it, many things are coming in. They can't filter it out. So is it bad per se? No, it's not bad per se, but it may not be the highest level that you could achieve. When people say, well, the indigenous peoples did it, understand, the ancient world was a lot different than this world. You didn't have GMO foods. You didn't have poisonous air. You didn't have shadow governments and all other type of stuff trying to get into your system, trying to get into your mind, trying to alter your body. You didn't have all that. You didn't even have unbalanced people as much for the most part. Most of the time now when you go in a room, it's like they said in the Matrix. You can't trust someone who's still plugged in the Matrix. So in the ancient times, that didn't exist. People knew the spiritual world was real. Even if they didn't practice it per se, they had a respect for it. This world now is a lot different world. So when you're changing your blood and brain chemistry, you want to be able to change it at will. You don't want to be able to have it where you have to depend on anything. So I hope that helps. Until next time, peace.